Well, good evening, everybody. We're about to get started. My name's Matthew Ryder. I'm the Deputy Mayor of London for Social Integration and some other stuff, communities. And we're here supporting this fantastic evening tonight. It's full all the way here, all the way up there. And you've all come to see Reggie and Clara talk about Reg's new book and some of his experiences. Before I bring them out, just to say we're really, really excited to be supporting this event as part of Black History Month. One of the things that the Mayor wanted to do this year for Black History Month, it's a big year, it's the 30th anniversary of Black History Month. And so one of the things he wanted to do was make sure that we're telling stories across London, different stories, different experiences that everybody, whatever your background, whatever your ethnicity, can share and be part of. And it's really great to hear stories that are historical, but it's also really great to hear stories from people who are current, who are modern, who are part of modern London. So it's great to see such a fantastic crowd out here, and we're really, really excited to be supporting it. So without any further ado, please give a big, big, big warm welcome to Reggie Yates and Clara Amfo.
Selection.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
Well, you know. Hello, everyone. Wow, we got an upper tier as well. Look at that. This would have been really embarrassing if no one showed up because this place is really echoey when there's no one in the room. Hello.
Everyone feeling good? Excellent. Well, look, tonight's going to be a really good night, I think, Reggie.
No pressure.
It's feeling good. Well, look, you have written a book. You, Reginald Yates, have written a book. Can we just give you a round of applause for that?
Yeah.
And, yeah, man.
It's a bit weird.
It's a bit weird, but look, you really did it. And we're going to talk about it for like the next, well, me and you are going to have a chat for about, I don't know, half an hour, wherever the night takes us.
Yep.
And then we're going to open it up to your adoring readers. For
well, not yet.
A lot of Q&As.
But the nice thing about this is we're having a conversation about the book before any of you have read it, because it might be shit. So let's just all pretend that it's incredible at this stage, because to be fair, it might be or it might not be. You just don't know yet. So let's pretend.
Well, okay, pretending, shall I say. The book's good. Look,
right.
you've been really honest in it. It's not necessarily autobiography, though, is it?
No, definitely not. That's the thing I've been trying to get across as much as possible. This is not an autobiography. I've said that wrong. It's a book that has autobiographical elements to it, definitely. But what it really is about is the last 6 or 7 years and the documentaries I've made. And, you know, I was talking to Matt a little bit earlier on about this. Each chapter basically takes the same sort of structure, and that is, at its core, each chapter is about a different documentary that I've made. But prior to me getting into the doc, I talk about a moment in my life that sort of connected me to an issue in a very real and authentic way. And that sort of speaks as to why it was so important to me to tackle that issue in a film. And then as the chapter rounds out, I essentially talk about the formative experience that I had in making the film, because quite genuinely, every single documentary that I've made has challenged me in some real and genuine way, and it's shifted me, hopefully, in the right direction.
And that's why we've got this publication ready now. But look, why now did you decide to write this book? Because I suspect you could have brought out a book 10 years ago if you really wanted to. Look, we're in an age now where if you've been on a reality TV show for all of 2 weeks, you can be like, so-and-so, my story. Yeah. And like, but you could have done that if you wanted to. So why now? Why is it so perfect for you to have this out there?
I think it's because I'm at a better place in my life.
Are you in a good place?
I'm in a good place in my life. No, I think it's more to do with where I am in terms of my greater journey more than anything else. I've learned so much.
By the way, we're going to have a tally on the word journey tonight.
Yes,
so that's one.
Exactly. You pound in a pint glass every time I say journey. But no, genuinely, I think as I've developed and as I've changed in my personal life, I think that that's actually been reflected in the work that I'm doing, which is why it's really fun to be able to look back on a career that's nearly 30 years long and say, okay, this era of your career and this era of your journey reflects where you were in your life and where you were in your head at the time. And having a greater sense of self-awareness and actually getting to a point where I could be much more honest in the work that I wanted to do. I think for the people that have been into what I've done since the beginning, have been on this journey with me, they can see how and when things changed. You know, for a long time I was sort of on the I was en route to being Mr. Saturday Night. And when I got there, I didn't quite enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Which is why I'm so glad that things have gone in the direction that they have done.
Well, this is it, because, you know, I remember there was one point where you were on TV, like, constantly, but in a proper entertainment format, you know, whether it was presenting Smile or Top of the Pops or, hey, Celebrity Fame Academy. But you did it, you've done it all, you know, Release the House, everything.
Right.
So how easy has it been for you to kind of shift, I guess, how you present yourself when you're not being given, like, set script? Because obviously, of course, you're a trained actor. Yeah,
well, it's trained is being generous. There's a reason I don't act anymore. I don't think it has been a shift. Again, it comes down to these four things. There's quite a few people from my management here tonight, and quite recently we had a conversation about how we frame next year and how we move forward and how we shift what it is I'm doing, and also how we shift the relationship with the audience that has come along with me. And I realized that we'd been using two words that were only really part of describing what my headspace actually was. And those two words were, they were learning, and they were, oh God, I've forgotten the words, how embarrassing. Oh God, that's really bad.
Well, let's just focus on learning.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was authentic, there you go. It's authenticity and empathy and learning. They were the words. Jesus, how embarrassing.
Empathy and learning.
It's been a long 48 hours, forgive me. So the two words that we were working with for a long time were empathy and learning, right? And those two words spoke to almost everything that I did, and they were really important, but we weren't really using them when it came to every project that we were looking at. And now, affecting change are the two words that we've sort of added to the four things that I feel are really important and need to be at the heart of anything that I do. So if it's a documentary, even if it's a fashion project, if it doesn't speak to authenticity, empathy, learning, change, affecting change, then it's not something that's right for me.
Now, you know, you mentioned like empathy and, you know, being authentic and learning. These are three things I guess you've had to always be very aware of, because you mentioned in the book that you almost walked away from this career. Ish.
Yeah.
So, you know, those are the three qualities that you noted are things that I think somebody needs to have in order to, you know, stay focused. So clearly I think that's always been there with you.
Yeah.
But you've been tempted to leave, like, where you are now.
Yeah, definitely. I talk about this point in my career quite early on when I was doing children's television, and I was told that I was going to be a Blue Peter presenter. And I was in this room with this exec, and he sort of said, okay, so the next step we're going to do, the next place we're going to take you to will be Blue Peter. We're going to make you one of these guys. And I said, no, you're not. And I was like this 18-year-old kid with braids and a crap moustache who was telling this executive.
We remember the bump off very well.
Yeah, it was lopsided and kind of depressing. But I was telling this executive where I was going to go, and at that point I didn't even really realize that I was tapping into that authenticity in that conversation, because for me, Blue Peter was a show that I'd never watched, really. I didn't really have relationships with animals. I never really went to the zoo. You know, I'm a city boy. I'm from Holloway. I'm from up the road, and we had one tree on my council estate, and I used to climb that, and that was as rural as it got for me when I was growing up. So to be on a show like Blue Peter, I was just like, no, I don't want to do that. I wanted to, you know, do Art Attack or do something fun, something that kids in tower blocks could do, you know. So that was one of the earliest moments where I actually challenged, I guess, an authority in saying, you know what you want for me might not necessarily be what I want for myself. And now I'm only really engaging in projects that speak to what it is that work for me. Because I think the audience can tell if you're not involved, if you're not connected to something in an authentic way.
Absolutely. Look, you mentioned your upbringing. You grew up in an estate in North London. You kind of banded between North and South throughout your life.
Yeah.
Now, you know, you are somebody that it's that thing, like, you don't really want to say someone's come from nothing, because I think sometimes people can fetishize what it is to be working
100%.
what it is to be working class. You know, it's a state that people are born into. There's nothing bad about it, but it's something to be celebrated. But sometimes people can be like, oh my gosh, they came from nothing, and look at them now.
Yeah.
But, you know, you definitely had a change in lifestyle from your friends growing up, right, with what you were getting into. So how has that been for you, like, with where you are now? Just, oh, hello.
Someone's just dropped a phone.
I mean, was there guilt there with your success? Were you happy? Were your friends happy for you? Like,
it's a difficult territory, really, because the environment in which I grew up in, I don't want to break out that tiny little violin and say all the cliched things that you're expecting me to say, but unfortunately that was my experience. And, you know, you sort of get to a place where you have to be comfortable with your reality, and also you have to be comfortable with what stimulates you and what inspires you. And that is what I need to be around now. Now, don't get me wrong, I do still have relationships with the people that I grew up with, but, you know, as I said, it is incredibly cliche, but so many people that I started out with definitely aren't in the place that I am now. And I don't dwell on the fact that my life turned out differently. What I do focus on is the fact that I was able to focus and able to get myself out of an environment and out of a situation in a way that, unfortunately, not a lot of my friends were able to.
And do you feel that's what kind of makes you want to do these projects? I mean, let's talk about you going to Australia,
right?
For example, like the ICE issue that you looked at. You know, all these people, you know, addicted to meth, really, really young ages. I mean, do you feel that part of what you saw growing up kind of helped you find, I guess, level with a lot of the people that you've met, like being in Australia?
I think that it's incredibly. I don't know. I guess it's kind of quite vain to think that the films are about me. The films definitely aren't. I'm not that much of a narcissist that I believe that the films are as successful as they are because of what it is that I do. I realized a long time ago that these films can't be about me and shouldn't be about me. Essentially, the people that I meet, they're the people that steer the conversation. They are the key to the issue in a really true way. Therefore, I don't put myself first whenever it comes to the film. I allow them to tell their story. We give them a platform to talk about their life in all of its intricacies and all of its difficult corners and all of the toughest elements of it. And that's what tells the story in the most real and 360 way, if you will. All I do is try and find a way to have a conversation with them and at times speak to my experience, but more than anything, it's not about me. So yeah, when it comes to the films like the ICE film, for instance, I'm someone that has never smoked a cigarette. I've never taken a drug in my life. I don't drink. I don't do any of that stuff. I never have done. Never, once. So my in came from quite a real place, and that was wanting to understand not only what addiction means, but also why addiction was something that affected them and their life in the way that it did and to the extreme that it did. And there was a fantastic sort of explanation given to me, which I was really pleased about, because I know I'm not the only person in the world that has that sort of distant relationship with addictive substances or addiction, period, that would be watching the film. And it was a therapist who said, a relationship with drugs is like a bad relationship with a partner. You know that this person is no good for you, but you'll keep going back because you love them and because they say they love you and because they make you feel a certain way. So you always go back, and once you're there, you forget the bad stuff because it's so good for a time until it's not. And that explanation, which was far more succinct and far more eloquent than mine, really helped me to understand that relationship with addiction.
And do you find that, with the films that you've made, that it was quite difficult for you to switch off, when you got home from a day of filming? Or did things stay with you quite a lot? Did it affect you personally?
To begin with, they did. There's a few of my close mates in the room, and they'll say, in the beginning, in the earlier days of me making documentaries, whatever it was that I was dealing with on the shoot came home with me. It troubled me, it messed with me, it got in my head, and I struggled with it. And I made the mistake of wanting to be everybody's friend. And that's just not realistic. So I'd take everybody's number, I'd take everybody's email, I'd try and have a relationship with the contributors on screen. And it got to a point where, you're making 6 or 7 films a year. That's like 30 or 40 people that you're meeting. You can't save everyone. You can't be everyone's best friend. Not to say that I thought I was saving anyone, but I couldn't realistically...
I think that's a human condition, though, isn't it? Like, we want to connect with people. You want to help somebody when you see them.
You definitely do, but in that environment, it's just not healthy and it's not the right thing to do. And now, I'm far more boundaried. I know my own BS. I know what I'm good at and I know what I'm not good at. And I'm not a therapist. I'm not here to change somebody's life. I'm here to talk about an issue through the prism of people and start conversations. We don't try and, in the films that we make, come up with a solution for any of the issues that we tackle. We try and start a conversation. And if we do that, then we've done a good job. So for me now, being boundaried, being very honest and realistic about what it is that I can do when I'm there. And also, on the first day of filming, saying to someone, look, just so you know, this is the way that it has to work. I can't take your number. We can't have a relationship after this. It starts and ends with the film. And I really want you to tell your story in its entirety. And I don't want you to feel that I'm using you. I need you to know that I'm giving you the platform to speak. And unfortunately, I have to stop it when the film ends. and it's an awkward conversation.
I was going to say, is that quite
but
difficult for you?
I have it off camera with everyone. It's awkward and it's difficult, but when I have that conversation, people are actually quite thankful because they know that when they are giving, they're giving because they want to, not because they're trying to win a friend or they're trying to give back in this friendship that is building on camera. It's not what it is.
Well, this thing, because, hearing you talk, you're very, confident in what you do and your position as a storyteller with these docs, but that wasn't always the case because, you've mentioned in the book that when you were first approached to make docs, you were just like, nah, there's no way, because I'm not an expert on this, that or that. How easy or difficult has it been to work up to this point where you're just like, no, I'm the right guy for the job?
It's taken a while, and it's quite funny because so that's exactly how it happened. I did a documentary in Kenya called Famous, Rich and in the Slums. This was the first doc that I ever did. I'm neither famous nor rich, but we were definitely in the slums, and it was definitely hardcore. It was myself, Lenny Henry, Angela Rippon, and Samantha Womack, and we lived in this slum called Kibera for a week. I had to live and work there. One of my jobs was cleaning toilets, and that wasn't me wiping down porcelain. That was me literally emptying barrels of feces and pushing it on a cart. And we had to run with the cart because the floor was bumpy, so you couldn't walk it. Mm-hmm. So you were running with this cart to the river while everything was splashing on you, and it was horrific. And the guy that I was doing it with did it every night to put his kids through school. It was an incredibly humbling experience, and his whole philosophy was there is no smell. This isn't about me, this is about my kids. As far as I'm concerned, there is no smell. And when he said that, you feel like a dickhead because you're like, oh, it's on my lip. And this guy's doing it every night. Yeah. He's doing it every night to put his kids through school.
Yeah. Shit on your lip is going to humble you.
Shitty lip. Shitty lip was a lot. That was a long night. Yeah. Shitty lip. Hashtag shitty lip, guys. Tweet about it. Shitty lip was a long night. But anyway, so I did this film, I came back, and something had shifted in me. I knew that I wanted to make more documentaries, but I just didn't feel that I was right for it. And I had this meeting with the then controller of BBC Three, a guy called Danny Cohen, who went on to be controller of BBC One and now runs a different company. Amazing man. And he sat down and said, look, after what you've achieved in this film and the way that people have reacted to it, we'd love you to do more. And I just went into this massive monologue as to why I wouldn't be right to front docs. I was like, there are no young black men on TV, let alone young men fronting documentaries. Why the hell is anyone going to listen to me? I'm not an expert in any field. Why the hell is anyone going to listen to me? I'm not a journalist. Why the hell is anyone going to listen to me? And all of the things that I monologued for like 15 minutes, and I felt really good about my monologue. And he just sort of sat back in his chair and listened, took it all in, and said, everything you've said is exactly why you should be fronting docs. And I was like, shit. On your lip? You can't really argue with that. Yeah, shitty lip. You can't argue with that. And I genuinely couldn't argue with it because he was right. I was really drawn to factual programming because of, I guess I call him an outlier. Louis Theroux was someone who I looked at and was drawn to because he was different. And I talk about him in the book because I call him the Rakim of this thing. He is. He's the God MC of these docs that we do and the way that we do them, because before him, there was none other. And after him, there's been lots of pretenders.
Oh, gosh.
And I look at him and I remember being like 14 or 15, maybe young, I was a lot younger actually, being about 12 or 13 and watching Weird Weekends. At that point, we only had one TV in the house. My stepdad, owned the remote. He was in charge. He decided what was on the screen, and occasionally he would put on this program that used to be on BBC Two after Top Gear. We don't talk about Top Gear.
We don't talk about Top Gear.
Nah, F those guys. This show was on, and there was this guy in a terrible Hawaiian shirt with floppy hair, big rimmed glasses, and he was willing to play the fool. He was willing to be silly. He was willing to be laughed at, but he'd asked a killer question. And he won people's trust in a really light and deft sort of way. He had a deft touch, and he was so smart in how he got people on side. And that was anyone from porn stars right the way through to nationalists and the far right. And he'd ask the question that we on the couch were screaming at the TV for him to ask, but he'd ask it at the perfect moment. And I was just incredibly inspired. And at that point, I couldn't even begin to think that I would ever do anything similar. And I don't think what I do is similar at all. I think that I've learned a lot from him, and I'm desperately trying to achieve something that's even close to what he does on a regular basis. Like his latest series, I mean, are you kidding me? He's something else.
Well, look, you mentioned your monologue and all the reasons why you said it can't be me. Where did that come from? That self-doubt?
It came from fear, and it came from self-doubt. Self-doubt was a huge part of, and I say was because there's a little bit of it there now, but I'm so much better with it than I ever have been, because for a long time I allowed what people believed I should be doing to define what it is I felt about myself, and that really isn't the case anymore. And you know, like I said, there's people from my management here, and they'll say themselves, the company that manages me and have done since I was 18 years old, have an incredible blueprint if you want to do a very specific kind of thing. And that's if you want to be on TV on Saturday night in this country, you be at the management company that I'm at. And for years, they've developed some incredible talent that basically the whole Saturday night on BBC One and ITV is people from my management company, from the company. I don't own it. I wish I did. Jesus, I'll be wearing velour head to toe now and a pair of fur slippers. But yeah, everyone that's on Saturday night is connected to or managed by the company that managed me. And they achieved it. They took me to Saturday night. You know, we did the children's Radio 1, boom, suddenly Saturday night. And because they are such an amazing management company, we were able to communicate and collaborate to get me to this place now and find a way to take me from that to what really spoke to me. And it's that thing of being brave and being honest with yourself and saying what you really want is to feel fulfilled in your job and taking the hit financially, because docs don't pay. Documentaries do not pay. And so you have to take that hit, and I did, because I was here. He knows. I don't know who that is. Is that Louie through? He's in here, checking his Barclays app.
Right.
They really don't. And it's that thing of being honest enough with yourself to say, all right, is this about the money, or is this about being fulfilled? Is this about fame, or is this about happiness? And I genuinely am more happy now than I've ever been in every corner of my life, because there is authenticity and transparency in every corner of my life. Excuse me?
And learning.
And learning.
Yeah. So, well, look, here you are. You've written this book. Did you actually enjoy it, or has this been quite a difficult thing for you to do?
Do you know what? I've loved writing it. There has been a frustration in writing the book, because I've done it in what has become possibly the busiest year of my life. So I started writing this at the beginning of the year, and I'm not going to pull out the tiny violin, but just to put it into context, pretty much a year to write a book is a long time, right? We're in October now, and I finished a couple of months ago. It's a long time. But this year, I've also written a feature film. I've written 2 comedy drama pilots. I've filmed 3 hours of documentary. I'm making another one, and I've written this book. And, oh yeah. Thank you. You should, yeah, like I said, you haven't read it yet. I didn't say that to get a round of applause. I said that because, quite genuinely, every single thing that I'm doing, I bloody love it. You know, those 3 hours of docs were the latest series of The Insider. They were really fucking difficult. I was in a refugee camp in Iraq for a week, living there. I was a prison warden for a week. I was in an e-waste dump in Ghana. These were hard experiences, but I learned so much about myself and was able to do it in a way where I could share that with you guys, and you could learn from that experience as well. To say it's fulfilling would be a huge understatement. So taking 3 or 4 weeks away from writing the book to make a film was difficult and frustrating, but at the same time incredibly fulfilling. So yeah, if I had 4 months clear, I would have done the book in 4 months. Right. But I didn't have at any point, and you know, people that know me and people that work with me will say no 2 weeks are the same, because they're always mental and there's lots of different things going on. You
said you learned a lot about yourself in this process of writing this book. Well, dare I ask, what did you learn about yourself, Reggie?
As I said at the beginning, it's not an autobiography, but there are autobiographical elements. I can say it now. And in reflecting, I realized, and I had quite a few moments, sort of sat there at my laptop, wherever I was in the world, writing the thing, and just sort of sat back and went, oh my God, and ended up telling a sort of anecdote that I'd completely forgotten about. And there are so many moments that thankfully I've been able to put in the book where I talk about something happening in my life that changed the way that I saw the world, that then led to me wanting to make a film about it. For instance, I talk about the Russian series, Extreme Russia, and I talk about specifically each film in that series. And there's a film about homophobia in Russia that we made that I'm incredibly proud of, and did really well, won lots of awards, etc. But when I was thinking about the film and I rewatched it, not only did I see it in a completely new light with really fresh eyes, but I started to think about the first time that this Ghanaian working class North London boy came into contact with the homosexual community. And I thought, wow, when did that happen? And then suddenly I started to realize, oh my God, my attitude shifted massively because of what I do for a living. So I was 12 years old, I was doing Disney Club on ITV, and I was fascinated by the head of the art department, a guy called Ant. Like, he was the coolest guy in the world to me because he never signed his name in any of my birthday cards. He drew an ant. Fucking G. What a G. Really? I was like, really? Are you kidding me? This guy's cool as shit. So Ant was really cool, right? And like at that point, I was obsessed with art. Like, I ended up going to Camberwell Art College. I think he played a huge part in that. I did my foundation. I thought I was going to be a graphic designer or a fine artist or whatever. And I was always inspired by Ant and the props that he'd make and the work that he'd do, right? So I watched everything that he did. And one day, I can't remember who it was that we had, and it was like Spice Girls or whatever, and we had like loads of props for them. And Ant built all of them by hand, and he needed some help. So we had this guy called Claude come on, this really cool French guy. So Claude was Ant, but French. And I was like, oh my God, he's like just as cool, but he's got a French accent.
Bonjour.
He's like, yes, bonjour, oui, oui, bon, c'est bon, petit falou. Like, really cool guy.
Yogurt.
I'm good at French. What else? Okay. But anyway, so Claude and Ant were these two guys working in the art department. I was like 10, 11 years old, fascinated by these two geezers. And then one day someone said to me, oh, so what do you think of Ant's husband? And I was like, Reggie? Husband? Because culturally, the environment that I'm from and that I grew up in, I'm from a Ghanaian family, Christian, you'll know. We were Pentecostal Christians who went all-day church. We were a Ghanaian family, and you don't talk about gay people. You don't have friends who are gay. That doesn't exist. And, I was told over and over again as a child, if you come home with a man and say you're gay, we'll disown you. And that's not because I was brought up in a disgustingly sort of disrespectful environment. That wasn't the environment that I was raised in. Just culturally, that's the way that people behaved when I was growing up. Obviously, attitudes have changed now. So I sort of unpacked that quite a bit in one of the chapters of the book, and what it stirred up in me and what it taught me, and the culture of the working environment that was very white and very middle class and super liberal, and the culture at home that was massively conservative, very West African, very black, and very, very working class.
Well, how actually do you think that's affected how your subjects deal with you in your documentary?
My subjects?
Yes, your subjects.
How they deal with me? I don't know. I think, I spoke about this recently. I think I've taken for granted quite a lot how much I've learned from children's television and how much I've learned from radio. And you'll know definitely when it comes to radio, you have to find a way to communicate with anyone, especially with radio, right? So kids TV, for instance, I'm 17, 18 years old. I'm on live TV. I'm sat on a floating bubble chair on Smile, and we're doing live call-ins, and you're talking to some faceless 6-year-old somewhere in the country. And the holy grail for us at that point was to deliver the Simpsons joke, which is to say something that the kid's going to laugh at, but their parents sat on the couch will laugh at too, right? Mm-hmm. So that was the thing that me and Fern were trying to compete with, and Dev. We were trying to say something that worked on 2 levels. And we're kids, and we're trying to like one-up each other with something smart and satirical and cutting. And in doing that every week, we literally did thousands of hours of live TV on that show. In doing that every week, you sort of start to learn how to communicate with so many different kinds of people and communicate with kids, but talking to them as grown-ups in a weird sort of way. And then when you're on radio, as I said, you turn up that fader, you don't know who's on the other end, you don't know what accent it's going to be, you don't know the way they see the world, you don't know anything, but you've got to find a way to quickly find a middle ground, find that common ground, and communicate with them in a way where they're on your side. So when you take the learnings, I was at Run Extra and Radio 1 for 10 years. When you take the learnings from those 2 worlds and then you put you put all of that in one person and you drop them in South Africa and you say, all right, go and speak to someone who was actually in favor of the apartheid. You have to use those skills. And those skills, I feel, were the part of the reason why I operate the way I do on screen.
Well, this is it, because, again, you say in the book, and you're very honest about the fact that society would look at you and all the things that you represent and almost say you shouldn't be doing what you're doing now. You are a young, working class, black guy from North London. In theory, all the odds were stacked against you, but, here you are. Do you find there's been hostility about your position?
I don't know. I don't really subscribe to the optics.
Yeah.
I don't. Regardless of the way that the world sees me, I've never allowed that to define how I see myself. And that was even the case when I was a kid. Me and Dev, the guy that I used to present on Smile with, when we had our first meeting and they were talking about wardrobe, for instance, we went, no, just give us the money, we'll do it. And they were like, what do you mean? And thankfully, the producer on the show, he's now one of my closest friends, Billy McQueen, he was like, no, we'll let them do that. And we went out and we went and bought academics tracksuits. We bought Air Force Ones, we bought New Era caps. And we were on kids' TV dressed like boys from the block because we were boys from the block. And the fact that we were able to do that, like, for one community, I want to say the majority, the white majority, it was just these kids wearing colourful outfits. But for kids that look like us, they were like, oh shit, they're being them. Wow.
Well, I watched you on Smile.
There you go. Yeah. Thanks for making me feel old. But no, but it was a big thing because at that time, what was it? Us and Bradley from S Club 7?
Yeah.
If you were, let's be honest, if you were a certain age and you were watching TV, if you weren't watching Trouble and Nickelodeon and you were looking to see yourself, at that time, it was just us guys. Because we weren't just black guys on screen, we were black guys in our we had braids.
You did.
We had cane row, we didn't have Andy Peters trims, we were us. We were boys from the bits and we were happy to be us. And I think that spoke to a minority in a way that I think even the BBC didn't realise.
Well, this is it, because your audience has obviously grown with you, and I want to talk about, the people that I guess approach you today when you're out and about filming. How much has your audience changed actually? Who are the types of people that are kind of coming up to you on the street and saying, oh, I watched this, I thought that was great, or I didn't like that? What is that? It's
changed massively.
Yeah.
And I use is the wrong word, but it kind of fits. So please don't take this with any negativity to it. But I use the man on the street as a great measure for where I am and what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. And now I can't call it in terms of who's going to stop me, because it's got to a point now where whenever I leave the house, someone stops me, which is great. And thankfully, I guess based on the work that I do, people aren't going, oi, dickhead. They're going, Reg, can I talk to you about ... And the way in which people communicate with me has changed dramatically over the years. So when I was sort of doing Saturday night, people would stop me, or they would just sort of walk past and shout about what they thought about my suit on Saturday night, or my haircut, or my shoes, or whatever. It's just super superficial. Whereas now, if someone stops me, they want to have a conversation and they want to engage about something that they saw, or they want to tell me about the conversation that they had with their children because of something they watched together. And the cool thing I think about what's happened with the films that I front, going from BBC 3 to BBC 1, and now the new stuff I'm doing being on BBC 2, which we're shooting at the moment, I've now got this really weird relationship with two very different audiences. So at one point it was predominantly people my age and slightly younger, people 25 to 35. Now it's their parents as well, because of these BBC 1 repeats, because people are saying, have you checked out this thing on iPlayer? And having those two audiences watching the films is changing my relationship with the audience, because I did this last night in Manchester, and it wasn't just people under the age of 30 that were in the audience. There was a lot of people in their 40s and 50s who'd seen the Chicago film on BBC 1, who then saw that and then went into iPlayer and fell into a wormhole, or watched all 6 films on Netflix and sort of went, oh, this really speaks to us too. And in answer to your question, I guess the audience is broader than it ever has been, and I really hope that continues, because there aren't many things that I can watch with my parents and that we'll both take something from and learn something about each other.
For sure.
While watching.
Is there a certain amount of responsibility that you feel now that you're, I mean, look, you're always facing your audience, you do a public-facing job, but particularly with this new phase of your career, with the documentary making, is there an element of responsibility that you feel now that you see how viscerally people, react to your work?
To begin with, I hated the idea of being a role model, and I'm not saying that I think I am one now, but
it's something that people are going to call you.
Right.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I was being stopped by mums on the street, and they were saying to me, "You're a role model for my son," and I'd sort of politely fob them off and then get out of there, because I hated it. I was a kid myself, and I didn't want that responsibility of being a role model to someone that I'd never meet. Now, I realise I ain't got a choice on two levels. First of all, representation. If you want to be in the media and you might like factual programming and you're young and you're black or brown, who are you looking at? So I haven't got a choice, really. If I get it right or wrong, they're going to sort of base a lot on the decisions that I make and the performance that I have. So there isn't really many examples which I'm aware of, so I haven't really got a choice in that respect. But also, I think just when you get to a certain point in your career, you have to understand that it's not actually about you. And the fact that this room is full is a lot. And I'm trying not to take it in because I'll probably turn into a blubbing wreck because I'm way too emotional for my own good. But the fact that you guys care enough to be in this room means a lot to me. And it says a lot about the work that we're doing. Because for me, as I said, I've learned a lot about the things that I've done wrong. And in these films, it's got to a point now where I understand the role that I play. And I see myself as a complicit contributor rather than a presenter. So the people that are the stars of the film are the people that I meet, like Fatima in Iraq, for instance, this amazing young Muslim girl who just gave so much and spoke about what it was like to be in Syria, what it was like to pick up the eyeball of her neighbor who was under 6 years old. It's like when someone does that on camera, it's not about you. It really isn't. So in understanding that and understanding the sorts of people that I'm meeting, I get the role that I play in this sort of bigger conversation. So, yeah, whether I like it or not, people will look at what I'm doing. And the good thing about that is if I fuck up, I'll know about it quite quickly.
Well, this is it. Social media, let's talk about it. I mean, how important is that now to your job? I mean, are you really into it? I mean, I know you use it, but is it more of a okay, it's needs must, or are you finding that's kind of actually helping you now with your documentary?
It's the best thing in the world now. Yeah? I hated it. I think Mary's here, Mary from my management. We had a conversation maybe a year ago, and if you follow me on social media, you'll know that I use it now a lot. About a year ago, I didn't really, and Mary was like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?"
Yeah, you only followed me back on Twitter about 3 months ago.
Get over it.
I noticed.
Sensitive. Social media sensitive. No, so I had 650,000 followers on Twitter, right? And I didn't use it for 2 years. And I lost 50,000, 60,000 of them. And I just decided I didn't want to talk to you lot anymore. I didn't want to do it. And I shouldn't have to. But that's a lot of people. And in not only just having that conversation with Mary where she pretty much called me a dickhead for not using my platforms properly, but also understanding the power of my platform, understanding that I have a voice that reaches places that it never used to. And for me to not use that in a healthy way or not use that in a positive way is stupid. So yes, I throw up a lot of stuff on social media, and yes, I mess about on my Insta stories and I put up pictures and
Good vibes only.
Good vibes only. I do lots of silly stuff on my social media, but that to me is me having a relationship with you lot, because I'm not going to meet everyone. I can't reply to every DM. I try, but I can't. But in that trying and in building that relationship, I now know some of the faces of the people that watch every documentary I do. People are messaging me today saying, "I'm halfway through your book already. Thank you. And just that relationship is one that wouldn't have been able to exist 15 years ago. So for me to not engage in that, I think is disrespectful to the people that are investing in me. So yeah, I see it as having a real relationship with the audience.
And look, with all these people on your side, that's only going to fuel on future projects. So have you got any sort of unfulfilled ambitions? What's next? I mean, look, you've written a book now, man.
Yeah, I've pitched my next one, so hopefully we'll be doing that soon.
Would you return to acting?
Pardon me?
Would you return to acting?
Nah. See, for me, storytelling is incredibly important and will always be, and it'll be a huge part of what I do for the rest of my life. But I feel that I'm more effective as a writer and a director than an actor. You know, I had some amazing moments as an actor, but I don't feel comfortable using this moment that I have to speak somebody else's lines and tell somebody else's truth. As a writer and a director, I can steer the narrative, and you know, that's why we're working on a feature film now, because the message and the thing that I really want to share is specific to me and specific to my experience, and I want it to be to retain the clarity that I have in terms of my voice. So I can be far more effective as a writer.
Right on. Look, Reginald, we're going to open it up to the floor now.
You used the Reginald word.
Reginald.
Oh,
okay,
the police?
so we've got, I think we've got one mic upstairs, and I believe we've got another mic downstairs. They're going to switch the lights so we can see everyone's beautiful faces. There we go. Everyone all right? Everyone still good? Okay, good. Wonderful, wonderful. Also, we are filming this, by the way, so if you do have a question, please don't shout it out. Please wait for the mic to get to you, because, yeah, it's not that great for the filming. Everyone just going, bah!
All right, where are we going first then?
Hello, have you got a microphone?
Oh, you're
can
like
someone
in the
get
most
a mic? Okay,
awkward
it's coming
place.
over, it's coming
look
over.
At this.
Please
look at this
bear
poor
with.
sod. You've done this now, so now he's got to go through about 50
Man with
people
the mic,
to
what's your name? Man with the mic, what's your name?
Tarek.
Darren?
Tarek.
Tarek, thanks very much, Tarek. Right, there we go.
Hi there.
Hello.
That's really loud. Thank you so much for speaking with all of us. It's been absolutely fantastic to hear kind of your thoughts and everything. What I was wondering is a lot of your documentaries tend to be based outside of the UK on experiences elsewhere in the world. Is there a piece that you're interested in doing based in the UK, or more on kind of closer to home experiences for some of the people here, for example?
I'm smiling and looking at my publicist, and she's shaking her head. Come on. Like, no, you can't. I'm making a documentary right now in London, and I'm really excited about this film. I spoke about it last night in Manchester, and they're looking at me going, no. I'm not allowed to talk about it yet, but it's about London. Connect the dots. Connect the dots. If you think about it, you'll know exactly what film it is. But I do think that films about London and films about the city that I really care about are important. And when I get the opportunity to make a film about something that really resonates, particularly pertaining to this city, I take it. And this film is going to be on BBC Two. We're like 4 days in the shoot. And I can't wait for you to see what we shot already. So you'll see it soon. Happy? Are you happy now? I didn't say it.
Question on the floor. Gentleman from the second, in
denim
the
jacket,
denim
yeah.
jacket. There's the mic coming to you.
Hello, mate.
Hi, you're right. I really enjoyed actually your two short films. It was Date Night and Patriarch.
Thank you very much.
Would you ever consider going on in the next 5-10 years to a feature-length film and doing, like, I know you said you are currently doing one.
Yeah.
Are you going to maybe pursue that as a career in the future at all?
Thank you for watching the shorts. There's actually 4 shorts, and funny enough, the 2 that you didn't mention are featuring a young actor called Tosin Cole, who might be in here. I think he's here. Yeah, someone just said, yeah, he's here. All right, so there's a young actor called Tosin Cole that's the lead in 2 other short films that I've made. One was for Channel 4 and one was for BBC Film. And Tosin is the next Doctor Who assistant. He's up there now. Give Tosin a round of applause. Yeah.
History.
You're going to see this man in Doctor Who very soon. So he's the lead in those 2 short films. And Don Toss, who's currently, his head is swelling right now, is an incredibly talented actor. And the last short film that we did for BBC Film is actually on BBC iPlayer right now, and it's called Shelter. And that's the film that we're writing I'm writing as a feature film, ideally to make as soon as possible, starring Nat Plonker, if he's not too expensive. Hopefully I'll be able to afford him when the time is right. But yeah, there'll be lots more coming, hopefully.
Great, yeah, thanks.
I think we should go back upstairs again.
By the way, I'm going to plug it while we're here. If you haven't seen Shelter, it is on the iPlayer. And, you know, speaking to something that we said earlier, actually, about tackling the things that really matter to me in different format and in different medium. When it comes to writing and directing, at the heart of everything that I do is an issue that I care about. And identity, mental health are 2 things that I really want to tackle next year in terms of the docs. But when it comes to drama, perception is something that I really care about and something that really has affected me and affected my career and affected my personal life. And Shelter is all about that. And you'll get to see this young man in it and you'll get to see him in Doctor Who very soon as well. So Shelter, BBC iPlayer, it's available now.
That voiceover voice. Out now. To this side. Hello, lady waving her hands. Okay, I think there's a mic coming over to you.
Yeah, it's going to take ages to get you a mic.
Oh, gosh.
You keep picking people in the most awkward places.
I know, sorry. Okay. You got any jokes?
Are we trying to get a mic there? We'll do that. How about we make her the next question
There
and we get a mic somewhere else for now?
All right.
That lady at the back who stood next to the guy with the mic. Let's go to her.
Oh, yeah, there we go. The glasses. Yeah.
Hi there. Of the last 5 documentaries you've done, if you had the opportunity to go back to one of them in 2 years to see what's changed, which one would you choose and why?
That's a great question.
I want to go back to every film that I've made because most of the films I've made, once they're completed, there are things that I want to do better with all of them. But talking about Louie again, you know, he went back and revisited a lot of the films that he's made, but he did it maybe a decade later. And I think that there's a real reason for that. You know, if you're going to go back and make a film about similar people or the same people, you need time to pass for the story to move forward. So I don't think I'd do it in 2 years, but I do think I'd definitely go back to Domiz, the refugee camp that I went to for The Insider. I'd love to see where Fatima is in 10 years. I think she'll be running the world. I think she's going to be an amazing, amazing leader. And I'd love to see what happens to the Burner Boys from the latest Insider series as well. I'd love to go back and see what happens to them. Hazwan as well from Iraq. And yeah, I don't know if I'd like to go back to jail. I think I can leave that one where it is. Yeah, definitely, I think giving it a bit more time, pretty much every film I've done so far, I think.
I think the lady up there's got a mic now.
Thank you.
Hello.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Hi, my name's B. Manzini.
How you doing?
Hi, Reggie. Nice to meet you. And I run something called Caramel Film Club. So I get to meet, fortunately, a lot of actors and directors and filmmakers. And I always ask this question because I'm curious about it. What is the most invigorating thing about fame? And what is the most challenging thing for you?
Well, it's weird. I don't know if there's anybody here that went to Anna-Share. If you've got the book already, you'll see. Oh, you went to Anna-Share? Like, oh, I did. Anna-Share is a small drama group in Angel, Islington. I grew up in Islington. And, Islington, for anyone that's not from the area. If you're from Islington, you say it like that. Islington, you say it quickly. But next borough over, Islington, is where I grew up. And there's a small drama group called Anna-Share. When I started at Anna-Share, it was £2.50 a lesson. It was nothing. We couldn't really afford to go to Sylvia Young's. So we went to Anna-Share. And when you went into Anna's, I don't know if you went there when it was really Anna-Share or what it is now, because it definitely ain't Anna-Share now. She's not involved with the theatre anymore, unfortunately. But there was lots of mantras around the room, and one of them was, there's no such thing as star and fame. And I started at Anna's when I was 8 years old, and the word fame, the word celebrity, or the word star, they make me feel uncomfortable, and I really don't like them. So I've never referred to myself as any of those things, and I never will. I do a job. I'm just really lucky that I do a job that I love, and one of the weird quirks of the job is that you guys get to see me at work. As far as I'm concerned, I ain't a fucking star or famous. So I don't subscribe to that, and I don't sort of live in that way. I go where I want to go, and I do what I want to do. And thankfully, the relationship I have with the public is that people want to chat to me, and I see it as small print. I don't, I'm not making millions from what I do, but I get paid well to do what I love. So if somebody wants to chat to me while I'm at Sainsbury's, I'll have a little chat. It's fine. I can live with that. So,
when you next go to Sainsbury's?
Pardon?
When you next go to Sainsbury's?
Do you know what? Not for a while. I think my big sister's here. I'm moving into my sister's house in a couple of days. So I ain't going to Sainsbury's for a while. I want to be eating out of her fridge. I'm looking forward to that. In terms of fame, I don't know what that feels like because David Beckham's famous. I ain't. And what was your other question?
So I asked what's the most invigorating and the most challenging thing, or success, I guess, if you don't subscribe to fame. You
All right, well, the most
answer it that way.
invigorating thing about success, I guess, and this is going to sound ridiculous, but I genuinely feel, in the context of this room, it's going to sound really ridiculous, but I don't feel I'm successful yet. I genuinely don't. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but I know what I want, and I know where I'm headed, and I've sort of reverse engineered how to get there. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm like on point 2 of a 10-point plan. So I've got a long way to go. I ain't successful yet. I've got a hell of a lot of work to do, and I've just really got started. So I don't know what that feels like, because as far as I'm concerned, I'm still in the grind, so I'm still working. In terms of where I am right now, I'm really enjoying it because, as I've said several times, I'm doing what I love. and to get up every day and do something that you enjoy is incredible. I mean, I talk about, I think in the first chapter of the book, the first job I ever did was Desmond's, right? As a young actor. Anybody here watch Desmond's growing up? Right? Amazing sitcom. If you're too young to have seen it, go on YouTube. It's pretty much all there.
London
it's
Live
amazing.
rinsed it, man. They're on all the time.
Right, okay. London Live then, go there to watch it. So Desmond's was a sitcom about, think about this, we're talking about 90s Britain. We're talking about a sitcom that was on. It ran for 7 seasons, 7 series, and it was about a black barbershop in Peckham. The theme tune was steel pans, it was calypso. It was authentic and real. There was an old Ghanaian guy in there who said old African sayings. There's an old African saying. It was an amazing, amazing show, right? If you've never seen it, please watch it, right? So anyway, my first ever job was on Desmond's. And I was over the moon when I got the part. I'm like 8 or 9 years old. The girl that played my sister in it has just been arrested. Now, the girl that played my sister in it is Zoe Ashton. She plays Vod in Fresh Meat, and she's doing brilliant things. And that was both of our first jobs. Absolutely incredible. And the reason I bring that up is because my first day at work, I was surrounded by people that looked like my family who were at work, but they were having the time of their lives. They were joking, they were laughing, they were messing around with the director, and they were brilliant at their job, and they were getting paid for it. Everybody that I knew that was a grown-up hated work. My grandmother was cleaning. My grandfather had 2 jobs. He was a security guard by night, and he was a mathematics professor at North London University by day because he wanted to work, and he had that immigrant sort of drive. My mum was a mature student, and she was cleaning, and everybody around me worked, but everybody hated work. So to be in that environment where I was surrounded by people that looked like my family, that loved work, told me that that was the job that I had to do for the rest of my life. So if ever there is anything that I take from where I am right now, and I take from success, if that's what this is called, is that I'm incredibly grateful to be able to go to work and love every minute of it.
Hey, Sam.
Thank you.
Okay. I can see the lady or guy. I can't see. Hang on, there you are. Yeah, with the red crimson. Yeah, there you go. On the floor. There we go. Aha,
Thank you.
She has a mic.
Hello, how you doing?
Stand up if you want.
Hiya. Oh, this is loud. Hi, Reggie. Hi, Clara. Reggie, you touched on this earlier about how you have some interactions that you bring home with you, and it's, I think Extreme Russia was, 5-6 years ago, and there were some conversations you had with some of the guys there that stuck with me as a viewer, because they were saying quite horrible racist things at the time. So how did you manage that while on production? Because you still have, production scheduled for the next day or for the next couple of weeks. So how do you manage to deal with that?
Thankfully, the films that we make are very honest in terms of my experience, at least, because yes, they are about the people that I meet, but my experience has to be reflected in its honesty for the films to be true. So the day after that, I was struggling, and I spoke about that on camera. But as I said, when I started making documentaries, I was terrible at being boundaried, whereas now I'm much better at it. I've got a fucking good therapist, I've got amazing friends, and I've got a process in place where I can sort of dilute and break down some of the stuff that I take on when I'm making these films. So thankfully things don't stay with me in the way that they used to. But I almost think it's an important part of the process when it comes to the docs to be in it and let it affect you in a good way or in another way, And particularly when it came to that Russian film, yes, I found so much of what I experienced challenging, and I was thankful for it in hindsight because that came across on camera, and I think that's why it resonated with a lot of people, because to hear those things, I was going through it on your behalf almost, and I think that why do people keep dropping their phones today? What is going on?
They're so engaged in what you're saying.
That's how it is. I don't know. This one's got the shakes in here or something. I don't know. Anyway, I think that's part of it. I think that you have to go through it, but thankfully, on a personal level, there is a system in place now, at least that I've created for myself, to make sure that it doesn't affect me ongoing.
I think we've got time for 2 more questions, so shall we go back upstairs? Oh, Renelle Rochester, I know you. Go on then. Right. He's a good guy to talk to.
I was gonna say, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing. Right, let's get a mic over there if we can. If it's going to take a while, we'll ask somebody. Hello, lady with the green. Hi. Yeah. Green scarf. Hello.
Front row just here, bro. Hello, lady with green scarf.
Hello.
Thank you. Hello. I'm interested to know if there is an end goal for your career. You talked about you're at stage 2 of a 10-point plan. You've been evolving over time. So I'm interested where you see...
I'm not going to sort of jinx myself by saying specifically exactly what it is, but to be vague, I think it's just about being able to tell stories in a real and authentic way and being the master of that in every sense of the word. To be able to really steer every story that I tell and ensure that it speaks to what matters to me and my truth. And that's about all I can say. But at the moment, I feel that I'm blessed enough to be able to storytell in lots of different ways. So if it's not a book, it's a podcast, which publicist over there launches next week. So make sure you check it out. It's called Talk Stew. It's going to be great. Episode 1 with David Baddiel. It's brilliant. But yeah, not to plug what I'm about to do, but the reason that that's something that I'm really proud of, again, is because, the podcast, we're talking about things that matter to me. So you get someone like David Baddiel on, and we talk about identity. We talk about the relationship between the Jewish community and the Afro-Caribbean community. We talk about circumcision. We talk about things that have affected both of our lives. And I have friends in the room that bring up different things and interesting and challenging things like death, for instance. He's got a show at the moment where he talks about his mother passing away. He talks about his father's dementia. And we get into all of that stuff because those issues have touched my life in a very real way. So storytelling is at the core of everything that I'm doing now. And I see that being even more the case in the future.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, up there. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing, Reg?
Very good,
get the
thanks, bro.
fanboy stuff out the way and just say I'm massive fan of you. Thank you for all of your work so far.
Cheers, bro.
The question, I'm going to be a little bit cheeky, it's kind of like a 2 question, if that makes sense.
Go on then.
Is there any of your documentaries or any of of your work that you sit back and watch, like back fondly after you've finished it? And you've been in some really testing places. Is there anything that you wouldn't do? Is there a limit where you think to yourself, I just couldn't put myself through that?
I said that about jail. I said forever and a day that, I've done everything that I can in my life to ensure that I don't see behind bars in a way that a lot of my pals did. Most of the kids that I went to school with are doing bird. And that's, I went to school up the road. I went to school in Old Street, Central Foundation Boys School. And when I was at school there, Old Street wasn't Old Street. It wasn't Shoreditchy. It wasn't that. It was a very different place. And, they were like, my school was a lot when I was there. We used to play Blacks v Whites football. There was Junior NF. There was White Cross. I talk about all of this in the book because that's a huge part of, race has really played a huge part in my life. And being raised in an environment where I was being told from the jump that I wasn't going to end up in the same way that a lot of my friends were going to end up, I always knew that jail just was never going to be a part of my story, ever. So when the idea came up for me to go to jail for a documentary, I was like, nah, I don't. Because the thing is, I've done everything I can to not know what that experience feels like. Fuck the audience, I'm not going to do it. And then I got over myself, got over my ego and went, hang on a second, there's something quite interesting here. Because if I actually experience this for the first time on behalf of the audience, I might help that 12-year-old version of me that is on the knife edge to know you don't really want to be in there, bruv. So, yeah, I think that was one of the things that I always said that I would never do. And, yeah, I'm glad that I did it, but I won't do it again. And going to Russia, I ain't doing that again. I'm done. I forget the first part of your question, but I'm sorry.
Is there anything specifically that you watch back and brings back fond memories from any of your previous work?
All of them do. Do you know what? I'll say this because I haven't said it yet. What I would like to do next, and what I think what we're working on doing at the moment, is next year making a series on mental health. Because that's really important to me. There's a 3-part series that we're working on. Hopefully we'll get it away. It's not done yet, but fingers crossed. Because I think we don't talk about it enough. There's so much obsession with physical appearance and looking after our body and health and eating well. But, we all invest so much time in going to the dentist 3 or 4 times a year, but not enough of us think about our minds and investing in just some time with the GP, going to via your GP and getting a specialist for free on the NHS is something we can all do. And I think we should all get those checkups because it's important to have those tools, right? So mental health is something that we're hopefully going to be able to tackle next year. And identity is another big thing for me. I really want to do something on identity next year. So they're two areas that we really want to focus on.
Thank you.
No problem. The last thing I'll say is, to finish your question, in looking back, not so much films that I was proud of, the one film that I'm not proud of, which is a huge part of me learning about myself and also making sure that the films that I'm making now and moving forward are better, was a film that I made on, I laugh about it because it was so bad, on teen gangs. And it's a terrible film. And the reason it's a terrible film is because it happened quite early on in my documentary career. And the production company essentially steered the film. They said, we're going to make this film about gangs. We've got like 3 weeks to shoot, and we're going to get inside teen gangs. And it was like, well, if you know anything about gangs, you know you're not going to infiltrate them in 2-3 weeks, right? So thankfully, in making the film, it became more about retribution, and it became more about people getting out of that life. And there were some special moments in it, but I was really frustrated when I look back on the film at the time because I felt as though I wasn't listened to, and I also didn't put my foot down enough to ensure that the story was far more authentic. And the most authentic moment that happened in the film got cut out of it, and it was incredibly frustrating. And that is when we went to Angeltown in Brixton. Mr. Ryder will know Brixton. If you know Angeltown, you know what Angeltown was in the 90s, you'll know that it's a very different place. It's a gang that came out of Angeltown called PDC. And we went to go and meet some of the leaders and founders of PDC. So we turn up at Angeltown, and my director gives me this big old pep talk about how dangerous this guy is and how, you know, if anything kicks off, we need to leave, etc. We turn up, and I see the guy, and I'm like, hang on, is that? And he's like, Reg! And it's my cousin Dijon. I'm like, yo, Dij, what you saying? You all right? It's like, yeah, la, la, la. I used to go to Angeltown every summer to stay with my cousins. So I spent half of my summer in Angeltown in Brixton, and I spent the other half of my summer in Westbourne Grove with Auntie Vic and the other side of my family for Carnival. PDC was started by a group of boys from that estate, most of which are my family. And we then had this incredible interaction. Loads of people came out of the block. Auntie Nella came out, Auntie Daniela came out, Mummy came out. All of these people came out, and they were like, Reg, you haven't been back in years, what's going on? Da, da, da. And we had this incredible conversation about how I was connected to this world by proxy. And my story and my connect, I ain't no gangster, I ain't a thug. I'm not trying to like claim set or whatever. I'm not trying to do that. But being in the city, being from the background that I'm from, whether I liked it or not, I was connected to this world. And that's not just me. You know, we're in Hackney right now. For anybody that's from this area who, you know, has grown up in this area, they might have a similar story to myself. And for that sequence to not be a part of the film really frustrated me, because that was a very real moment that would have defined that film, and that would have, I imagine, opened a lot of people's eyes to a world that isn't this weird, crazy, underground niche thing. It's people's brothers, people's cousins, normal kids that you grew up with that decide to just make a bad decision and end up in a life that they probably can't get out of.
So would you hopefully revisit, you know?
That's one film that I'd like to do again, if I can. And I'd do it on my terms, and I'd produce the fucking thing, and it'd be done properly.
Word is bond.
Yeah. That's answer your question.
Wow. Reggie, I just want to say thank you so much for being so open and for being so honest. I think professionally and personally, I know that you are like that. You've always been yourself, but you just seem like the best version of yourself right now. You don't give a fuck, basically, and it's great.
Do you know what? It's way too much energy to pretend. Yeah. I can't be bothered anymore. Yeah, I'm just over it.
No, I see that.
Yeah,
and it's great.
And this isn't a hard sell or anything, but I'm just so glad that so many of you have come out because of this book, because this book isn't an autobiography. It literally is me talking about these films in an authentic way and in a real way. And I'm not saying that I want you to know loads about me, but I think that in buying the book or in reading the book, you'll understand why I made the films that put me in places that I might not have wanted to be. Because, well, read the book and you'll find out why.
There you go.
So thank you, in short, is what I'm saying. Thank you so much for coming.